So, anybody that does come in to see this, if you have been a subscriber for a while, you probably remember this video. But if not, I'm going to show just a few minutes of it to remind you guys a little bit about Miss Pleasant. And we're going to get more into the story. So, let's go. So yeah, this is her older. This one got a little older. It says in 1889, she purchased a small ranch in Fruitable near the intersection of East 14th Street and 22nd Street. That was the property that I showed you guys, that beautiful estate that you guys seen that's in Oakland, California, basically. And I'm trying to get to this. May not talk about that here because something happened where they took over her property. So of course this was another one, just like they called her the millionaire voodoo queen. Now we gonna get. There's two things we could. This may be a part two, guys, because I don't. It's a lot of information on this, guys. There's one thing about it is with this voodoo thing that came to effect. They thought that she used her wild, which of course was her aboriginal spiritual nature. They felt like that influenced her into getting all this money. But that's why they called her the voodoo queen. So you already know they try to change things to something evil when it comes to her. So because she was bright, because she was intelligent, because she knew how to invest her money, make it grow, and all of that, they want to act like she was some type of voodoo queen. So obviously, she was not any type of a voodoo queen. She just knew how to invest. She was smart. She was intelligent. She put herself in places. She required a lot of business assets and people that she could mentor from, so on and so forth. She had money, so she invested her money. She just was smart. She was a smart woman. I mean, they act like they don't know that we smarter than anything. I mean, come on. She just knew what to do. The sis was on it. She was on her game. She ain't play no game. She was about her money. She was about her money. Yeah, they used to call her the Mammy. Mary Ellen Mammy Pleasant. Don't they got the nerve? Do y'all see the insult that they put on our people? I was so insulted when I saw this, right? So insulted that they had the nerve to title her a mammy when she was the richest woman in that area, period. Black, white, any color you want to call it. But anyway, that's a whole nother part of this story. Anyway, so she was a conductor. Check this out. You know how you guys hear about this underground railroad and this and that, da 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 da. Why was it underground? They were working. She was a conductor for the North Beach Railroad Company. Listen to this. She's not the only one. Harriet Tubman. Just I don't want to get off topic, but that's another one. Harriet Tubman worked. She worked for the railroad system. She wasn't running, sneaking slaves through under this and that. This is how stupid and weird these people are. This is how crazy and ignorant and dumb they try to make us appear to be. Harriet Tubman, if you guys ever hear anyone telling you about the story of Harriet Tubman in this underground railroad system, tell them, nah, she worked for the North Beach Railroad Company. Let them know you're not stupid, you're not ignorant, and you know what's going on. Because that's a total lie. And she wasn't the only one. There, all the indigenous or aboriginal at that time worked for the railroad that, they were employed there. A lot of them were invested in it. My great grandfather actually was invested in the railroad company. He worked for it. He had stock in the railroad company. I mean, this is nothing new. What? This shit crazy. How people act like we stupid. So anyway, so she was a conductor for the North Beach Railroad Company streetcar, Providence Pleasant, from boarding in 1868. So the case goes to the state Supreme Court, awarded $500 in damages, and she wins the case. See, she didn't need $500, but she just did it to show them, like, what are y'all talking about? Y'all stupid. Stop trying to play with me. Yeah, that type of thing. She didn't want to, deal with it. Okay, guys, is it the video that's low or is it me? Can you guys hear me great? And then the video is just very low. Let me know what's going on. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Do you guys hear me or no? Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Let me see. Okay, so it's not the volume, it's actually the video. So let me do this. I'm gonna play the video. This is what we could do. Y'all know I'm gonna find a solution for us, right? Let's play the video from here. Let me find the video. Let me see. It's on here, so I could just go to it from here. Go to the video. Okay. This is where we're at. Okay, so let's do this, guys. I got you. I got you. Power on. Dang, should I take it back a little bit? You guys want me to take it back to where it was? It was only a few moments. Let's do that. Just to make sure. I don't even remember what minute I had it on where I wanted to start it. Okay, I think around here. 2302. 2302. Okay, give me just a second, guys. So I think we're going to be going about here. Much love to the chat. Now let's mute this. Y'all with me? Y'all with me? As long as y'all can see everything, and I'm about to breeze through these pictures, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about Miss Pleasant. So yeah, she Bluetooth connected. Older. This one she got a little older. It says in 1889, she purchased a small ranch in Fruitable near the intersection of East 14th Street and 22nd Street. That was the property that I showed you guys, that beautiful estate that you guys seen that's in Oakland, California, basically. And I'm trying to get to, this may not talk about that here, because something happened where they took over her property. So, of course, this was another one, just like they called her the millionaire voodoo queen. Now we're gonna get, there's two things we could, this may be a part two, guys, because it's a lot of information on this, guys. There's one thing about it is with this voodoo thing that came to effect, they said that she used her wild, which of course was her aboriginal spiritual nature. They felt like that influenced her into getting all this money, but that's why they called her the voodoo queen. So you already know they try to change things to something evil when it comes to her. So because she was bright, because she was intelligent, because she knew how to invest her money, make it grow, and all of that, they want to act like she was some type of voodoo queen. So obviously she was not any type of a voodoo queen. She just knew how to invest. She was smart. She was intelligent. She put herself in places. She required a lot of business assets and people that she could mentor from, so on and so forth. She had money, so she invested her money. She just was smart. She was a smart woman. I mean, they act like they don't know that we smarter than anything. I mean, come on. She just knew what to do. The sis was on it. She was on her game. She didn't play no game. She was about her money. She was about her money. Yeah, they used to call her the Mammy. Mary Ellen Mammy Pleasant. Don't they got the nerve? Do y'all see the insult that they put on our people? I was so insulted when I saw this, right? So insulted that they had the nerve to title her a mammy when she was the richest woman in that area, period. Black, white, any color you want to call it. But anyway, that's a whole nother part of this story. Anyway, so she was a conductor. Check this out. You know how you guys hear about this underground railroad and this and that, da 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 da. Why was it underground? They were working. She was a conductor for the North Beach Railroad Company. Listen to this. She's not the only one. Harriet Tubman. Just I don't want to get off topic, but that's another one. Harriet Tubman worked. She worked for the railroad system. She wasn't running, sneaking slaves through under this, and that. This is how stupid and weird these people are. This is how crazy and ignorant and dumb they try to make us appear to be. Harriet Tubman, if you guys ever hear anyone telling you about the story of Harriet Tubman and this underground railroad system, tell them, nah, she worked for the North Beach Railroad Company. Let them know you're not stupid, you're not ignorant, and you know what's going on. Because that's a total lie. And she wasn't the only one. There, all the indigenous or aboriginal at that time worked for the railroad that, they were employed there. A lot of them were invested in it. My great grandfather actually was invested in the railroad company. He worked for it. He had stock in the railroad company. I mean, this is nothing new. What? This shit crazy. How people act like we stupid. So anyway, so she was a conductor for the North Beach Railroad Company streetcar prohibitions, Pleasant from boarding in 1868. So the case goes to the state Supreme Court, awarded $500 in damages, and she wins the case. Obviously, she didn't need $500, but she just did it to show them, like, what are y'all talking about? Y'all stupid. Stop trying to play with me. Yeah, that type of thing. She didn't want to, deal with idiots, and she had to put them in their place and let them know she wasn't the one to be played with. That she knows exactly what she's doing. She had that money. She was about it. She wrote some poems. She was a writer. She was a philanthropist, so she had a book of poems. She's done so many things. She was an author. She was a real estate mogul. They had a color conventions project, Equality Before the Law, the California Black Convention activism. She actually formed this and got everything together for the Colored Conventions Project, where she helped to exploit Black businesses, making sure that they were getting noted and getting their businesses out there. We were actually shopping with each other, basically like how we hear like shop black, with each other, things of that nature. Even in Paris, they talked about her in Paris. We can't read. I don't know how to read this, guys, because I don't read French. But as you see this article here, this right here. They were talking about how she won the case. She won her case. So and so, blah blah blah. Why would Paris even be concerned with this indigenous black woman winning the case? Like, why y'all even talking about her? Because she was prominent. This goes to show you guys. I want you to see. I can't read this writing. It's so small. I can't stand this. But this was actually talking about some of the other activists. I want to bring this information forward, but I was not able to detach from the document. The part I read was just saying that there were so many different activists brought on. This was a black cow. You know how they talk about the cowboy? This was a woman. Y'all see her ready and right. I don't know why I put this picture in there, guys. I didn't mean to, but it's there. But anyway, check this out, guys. Um, Something I want to mention about the railroad too. Like I said, a lot of when you hear about these, oh, the underground railroad, and you're like, oh, we created this, we created that. Remember, these railroads, our ancestors were invested in these railroads. They actually had stocks. There are railroad certificates right now that you can actually purchase that are stocked in the certificates. That go to a different or particular railroad system. Now, keeping in mind the system that she worked for, she had stock invested in there. So anything that she had was also stolen from her, just like everything else we talked about. I'm not sure if you guys remember everything that we spoke about, but as you know, Thomas Edison was a bank teller, and she actually helped him to, get started in business. She used him as a muse because she wanted him to act as her face, so on and so forth. So I wanted to definitely get into that. Give me 1 second, guys. Let me see something real quick. Okay, yeah, so we're going to listen to a little bit more of this, and then we're going to talk about Miss Lacks, and from there, it actually just popped up out my album when I was doing it. But yeah, they had her as Mammy Pleasant. Check this out. She was in the call. Of course, she was in the call. She had all the money. Look, this her. All this is about her. All this. We can't read it. Sorry, guys. Dark skinned lion tamer in the house of mystery. Mammy Pleasant, in whose heart lie buried the secrets of the Bell family. This is all about her. She had all the information to the Bell family. Thomas Bell, Graham Bell.
Thomas
If you
Edison.
guys know
Lord,
about Thomas
y'all know what I
Graham
meant to
Bell.
say.
So she was the one that they said she died with all the secrets about Thomas Graham Bell because she actually assisted him. She helped him. He left the bank. He was a teller when she met his bum ass. And then she brought him up because she wanted him to help her because she knew he knew people with money from being in the bank. He worked at the bank. Bell Home Deadly Way. Mammy Pleasant files for record claim it to House of Mystery. So the House of Mystery, her house, they tried to take her house from her. And
And
which
then it
they
was
did.
the Settler Street lot is also transferred. They transferred it, did some nonsense with it. I don't remember the exact details. You guys can search some of this stuff on your own. I'm sorry, I can't like do everything, but I'm trying to just open you up to it. So when it comes to that, I know that they sued her to take her property. We may read some of that in some of the documentation, depending on how long we're going to be up here, guys. I may be able to find that part. I pulled up some things that I didn't even read over myself. Some information I had prior, I had to find in my old emails and a different login, but I did find it, which was enabled me to bring her name up and get into this. So some of this stuff we'll go over together. So we may very well dig up some of that. So she was one in women's history, economic power, Mary Ellen Pleasant. I don't know why it's looking so blurry on the screen. I guess because I have it pulled up. So let me go back to StreamYard. Okay. And it's still like I can't read it. How she used money. She worked in something. I don't know. We're gonna get into that anyway. She worked
Okay,
in
I
all
got
these
this
different
pulled
areas,
up.
guys, because what she was doing was she was getting business partners. Let me say that. Let me get to maybe one of these pictures and I'll just talk about it a little bit. What she did, guys, she was when she got involved with Thomas Bell, she told him, listen, I want you to bring me around all these people that have the money. I want to learn what they're doing and know what's going on. So he was like, okay. So what she would do, she'd go to the parties, she'd meet all these rich, famous people, then they talk with her. They, some of them thought she was, Caucasian woman. She passed the white with the one she wanted them to think she was a Caucasian. She would pass the white so she can get information, talk to them, and she'll smile and flirt. You saw she was beautiful, so she was smiling, flirting, and get information. Oh, what are you investing in? What's the stock? What's this? Oh, so somebody told her about that gold. This is how she got her riches, y'all. She found out about the gold. This is where she came into the bread. So she had all the gold. So yeah, she found out about that. She started investing. So she was used. This is why she used these people. So she started living with Thomas Bell, and I'm going to go backwards. I think this was one of her Spring Valley Waterworks, one of her companies. This is one of her companies. She owned Spring Valley Waterworks. This was one of her companies. Just one of them, y'all. Let's see. Yeah, and this is the property. This is the property that she had as well.
Y'all see this
It
property
looks a
she
little
had?
desolate, but back then you could see their homes here and there scattered about. She had so much land, but this land she owned in these particular areas, they obviously they fixed them up, and these are all stores.
So you guys see this land. Look at this land this woman had. Do you see how big and beautiful it is? And it goes all the way back. That's all her land. They have one house now that's still I believe is still standing as a some type of trademark of something someone else has, because the wife of the Thomas Bell guy took all of her stuff, stole everything from her. It was crazy. That never would have happened in the time of day. In a reality, other than these people's demonic system, this is how they did it. Took all her gold. They started the Federal Reserve some years after, about maybe 20, 30 decades later, after they had gotten all the gold from all these different places, but that was a multitude. Not to mention the 80 million tons of gold that was removed from the Grand Canyon. We're not going to talk about that. I've talked about it before, but yeah, they removed so much gold from everywhere and created this system off of our stuff. They got a lot of nerve. We'll take your shit and you'll use it against you. So yeah, let's continue on. We'll listen to a little bit more of this, and then we're going to get into her great heir.
This was a store. This was a store. This was a store. All these stores. She owned all this. She had mad property. She was like a real. She didn't just own real estate, guys, or wasn't into real estate. She was known as the real estate mogul. If you know what a mogul is, she was the top real estate mogul. Y'all seen this with the other one? Some of these pics. This is just showing some of her the registration of her death. Rest in peace to this goddess. Salute to my chat. Anybody in there that I have not notated, you already know number love and yes, yes, brother, exactly. The Bell South Company, yes, yes, yes. We're gonna get a little bit into that. Yeah, she helped. She that was her business as well. She had this guy helping her. He quit his job, so of course he's invested. We have to keep in mind he didn't totally take advantage of her. He quit his job. She wanted him to help her so she could build herself and get her business established, and that's what she did. Once that was accomplished and all that had been done, then now she has to compensate him. He has to take care of his household, his wife, his family, everything he was doing before he decided to go on with her. So obviously, of course, he deserves some compensation for that. So we're not gonna say, like he didn't deserve it, but there's some treacherous stuff that went on at the end of that. We're gonna talk about that. You tell those newspaper people. This is what Miss Pleasant said. She said, "You tell those newspaper people that they may be smart, but I'm smarter. They deal with words. Some folks say that words were made to reveal thoughts. That ain't so. Words were made to conceal thoughts. Play with it. You talking about a smart indigenous woman? Did y'all hear that? That was an inner thought. You good, mommy? Okay. It says, you tell, this what Miss Pleasant said. She told them to tell these newspaper people this. She said, you tell those newspaper people. Some folks say that words were made to reveal thoughts. That ain't so. Words were made to conceal thoughts. Play with it. She knew what she was. She wasn't a mogul for no reason, y'all. She was not a mogul for no reason. This is the Civil Rights of California, dedicated to her. Obviously, this is a memorial they have in California of her. Nice, big, large. It's not something small. Actually, it's large. This is the testimony of somebody speaking about something that happened. We're not gonna get into that. This was I was going to speak a little bit about these other people that I showed earlier where we couldn't really read everything. But yeah, this is just some of the people that were activists, that were well known back in the time that we may not hear of. You guys can actually look these people up. I may be doing some things in the future on a couple of them. This was Annie Turbo Malone. You guys can look up information on her. Hannah Flies. You guys can look up some information on. I mean, not Flies. I'm sorry. Hannah Fortes. You can guys can look up information on her. Robert Reed Church Senior. Look up some information on him. And dang, I should have copied and pasted their names. I'm not sure of these gentlemen, unfortunately, but these are a couple of people you guys can look up info on that were very prominent for our people. So we got to make sure we're sharing information to let people know that we're aware. This is what was going on. This was declarations and certain things that were going on when they came into California during that gold rush time. She was a part of that. Yes, yes, yes. Salute, salute to the chat. Salute to everybody. Okay. Tony Furlow, all the family. All right. All right, guys, we're about done with the pictures. I believe I got a few more. Let's kind of breeze through these. I just want you guys to see these pictures of her. This was her. This is a cover from one of her books, talking about her story. There are books out there on her. You have to probably dig to find them, but there are a couple of books on her. She was beautiful. Remember, she was a mulatto, indigenous woman, but her mom was Aboriginal, totally Aboriginal. Her dad was as well, but he was an Aboriginal from a different area. This was another picture as she got older. She was Aboriginal from a different area. He was Aboriginal from Hawaii. So her dad was an Aboriginal Hawaiian man. She took care of people. She was a natural healer, like myself. She played with them herbs. She healed people. She healed the sick.
That's why I love this story.
She did all the things that people would consider a voodoo doctor being done. So because she had so much money, this is her in her late 80s, still beautiful, still beautiful. Because she had money and because she made all these decisions. This was on somebody else. Okay, so we're done with the pics. It's going into a different album now. We'll stop talking because that's another queen. We'll talk about her maybe at another time and another date. So let's see what I am going to let you guys see now. I have to share this information. We are going.
Okay, guys, let's get to this next one. Hold on a second. I'm gonna have to pull it up. So give me a second.
Miss Henrietta Lacks and her information. I don't know what is going on with the internet. Now they attacking my laptop. I don't know what's going. That was wow. Okay, hold on a second, guys. Hold on 1 second. Let's go.
To float on a particle of dust that hold the keys to understanding cancer, virology, and genetics. Luckily for us, such a thing exists in the form of trillions upon trillions of human lab-grown cells called HeLa. Let's take a step back for a second. Scientists grow human cells in the lab to study endangering patients. To make sure that they can repeat these experiments over and compare the results with other scientists, they need huge populations of identicals that can duplicate themselves faithfully for years. But until 1951, all cell lines that researchers tried to grow had died after a few days. Then a Johns Hopkins scientist named George Guy received a sample of a strange-looking tumor, dark purple, shiny, jelly-like. This sample was special. Some of its cells just kept dividing and dividing and dividing. When individual cells died, generations of copies took their place and thrived. The result was an endless source of cells that's still around today, the very first immortal human cell line. Guy labeled it HeLa after the patient with the unusual tumor, Henrietta Lacks. Born on a tobacco farm in Virginia, she lived in Baltimore with her husband and in a process called apoptosis. This prevents the propagation of genetic errors that creep in after repeated rounds of division. But cancer cells ignore these signals, dividing indefinitely and crowding out normal cells. Still, most cell lines eventually die off, especially outside the human body. Not HeLa though, and that's the part we can't yet explain. Regardless, when Dr. Guy realized he had the first immortal line of human cells, he sent samples to labs all over the world. Soon the world's first cell production facility was churning out 6 trillion HeLa cells a week. And scientists put them to work, in an ethically problematic way, building careers and fortunes off of Henrietta's cells without her or her family's consent, or even knowledge until decades later. The polio epidemic was at its peak in the early 50s. HeLa cells, which easily took up and replicated the virus, allowed Jonas Salk to test his vaccine. They've been used to study diseases including measles, mumps, HIV. We know that human cells have 46 chromosomes because a scientist working with HeLa discovered a chemical that makes chromosomes visible. HeLa cells themselves actually have around 80 highly mutated chromosomes. HeLa cells were the first to be cloned. They've traveled to outer space. Telomerase, an enzyme that helps cancer cells evade destruction by repairing their DNA, was discovered first in HeLa cells. In an interesting turn of fate, thanks to HeLa, we know that cervical cancer can be caused by a virus called HPV, and now there's a vaccine. HeLa-fueled discoveries have filled thousands of scientific papers, and that number is probably even higher than anyone knows. HeLa cells are so resilient that they can travel on almost any surface. A lab worker's hand, a piece of dust, invading cultures of other cells and taking over like weeds. Countless cures, patents, and discoveries, all made thanks to Henrietta Lacks.
Yeah, I don't know why this internet is acting really stupid, but like it's really getting on my nerves right now. Let's hope it gets back together. Let's stop sharing this. Let me get to the next video, guys. That's like crazy. Like really crazy. Hold on a second. All right, let's see. Yeah, it was acting kind of freakish, Empress. I seen it. It wouldn't let me loosen the connection with the comments. It was doing some other stuff. Let me see. Where is it? Okay, here it is. A little more in depth into this. Yeah, it was tripping, sis. Like, it was acting real freakish. Like for real, for real. Like, come on now. All right, let's see. Oh, I did that. Moving the windows. See, it's doing it again. Moving my windows and all of that. Let me put this back in here. Okay, there we go. There it is. Yeah, acting crazy, like real crazy. All right, let's go.
Henrietta Lacks was a sort of poor Black tobacco farmer who grew up in Southern Virginia. And in 1951, she was diagnosed with cervical cancer. At that point, she had moved up to Baltimore. And she went to Johns Hopkins for treatment because it was the only place anywhere near her that treated Black patients. So this was the era of segregation. And the hospitals had the quote unquote colored wards, which was the only place that Black patients or poor patients could be seen. And without telling her, before treating her tumor, her doctor just cut a little piece and put it in a dish. And he sent that down the hall to George Guy, who was the head of tissue culture research at Hopkins. And George Guy had been trying to grow human cells outside of the body for decades, and it had never worked. And for reasons that remained a mystery, Henrietta's cells just never died. So they started doubling their numbers every 24 hours. They went from like 1 dish to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16, and then just sort of pretty quickly took over the lab. And George Guy started calling his colleagues and saying, I think I have the first immortal human cell line, which is what they're called, which means they'll just grow and divide forever. And in response, his colleagues all said, great, can we have some? Because there'd been this enormous effort to grow cells outside the body for 100 years, because we really didn't know a lot about cells at that point. And in response to all of his colleagues asking for them, George Guy sent them to anyone who wanted to use them for research. And they spread around the world this way really fast. And they were one of the most important things that happened to medicine. They were used to help create the polio vaccine. They went up in first space missions to see what would happen to human cells in zero gravity. They were used to create our most important cancer medications like vincristine and tamoxifen. Her cells were the first ever cloned, her genes some of the first ever mapped. They were used to help develop in vitro fertilization. Basically, almost all of the vaccines we take today can be traced back to research with her cells. There isn't a person out there who hasn't benefited from research on her cells.
The surprising tenacity of her cancer cells, which made them so important to medical research, also ultimately took her life. Henrietta Lacks died in October 1951, at the age of 31. As her cells were taken without her knowledge, in an era before the concept of informed consent existed, Henrietta died never knowing how important her cells would be. Even her family didn't learn of the true extent of her legacy until science writer Rebecca Skloot began working with Henrietta's daughter Deborah to uncover the truth almost 5 decades later.
Rebecca, she worked hand in hand with my mother, Deborah Lacks. They went on journeys to Clover, Virginia, to talk to family members. They did a lot of work together. They hit the road a lot. They put a lot of miles on their cars. My mom was 2 years old when Henrietta passed away. So she never knew her mother.
As Deborah learned about these things, there's so much mixed emotion. in it, because on the one hand, look at all this incredible stuff my mother did for science and for the world. That gave her a level of peace with her mother's death that she had wanted her entire life. At the same time, there was a lot of anger about the fact that everyone has benefited from these cells except her family.
This information was out there for so many years, and the family was not even aware of Henrietta's, that they had taken cells from Henrietta Lacks, and these cells have been used all over the world by scientists, labs, researchers, and millions of dollars have been made, and you still have the family struggling with basic health care. You know, we got to recognize the past, but kind of like move forward and move in a positive direction to make sure that this doesn't happen again to our family or anybody else's family. And the Lacks family is making sure that we continue to move forward to honor and preserve her legacy and speak about her life.
So they collaborated with the NIH and formed what's known as the HeLa Genome Committee, where a few members of the Lacks family and a group of scientists sit on this committee, and anyone who wants to do research with the Henrietta's genome have to put in an application that is reviewed by members of the family and the NIH scientists. There's just, it was unprecedented. There's never been a moment like that where research, quote unquote, research subjects were a part of the decision-making mechanism of science.
The family now has a seat at the table. So instead of us being the last to know, we will be the first to know.
The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks is about so many different things. It's about science and communication and how important it is for scientists to be able to communicate with the public. It's a story about journalism. What happens when people tell your story? It's very much a story about race and science and race and medicine. So much of the history of science and medicine was built on the backs of Black people without their knowledge. And so it's so important that Henrietta's story be told as part of that history. And in some ways, that's the concept behind Black Lives Matter, is saying, yeah, this Black Life Matter. And it matters that we talk about it, and it matters that we tell Black stories. And look at what can happen when we try to kind of squash those stories. It has generations of impact.
This year marks the 100th anniversary of Henrietta's birth, and her incredible immortal cells continue to be more important than ever. With the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, the HeLa cells were at the forefront of the early research which helped to shape our understanding of the virus.
Within the first kind of few days of when we really realized, oh wow, this is a pandemic, this is terrifying, I started getting texts from members of the Lacks family saying, tell me Henrietta's got this. Like, HeLa cells are working on this, right? You know, and I do think that it says a lot about the Lacks family that their first response to the pandemic from so many of them was, okay, how is HeLa dealing with this? You know, we know she's got this.
It just makes me proud, because she's not only helping a specific group of people, but she's helping everybody worldwide. She's saving lives. She's giving life. So, I mean, yeah, with these, I say, magical cells.
When I do speaking engagements, people come up to me and they say, I have children because of your grandmother. That's a heartwarming feeling when, you know, your grandmother has died, but yet she's still providing life. So for her to know that she is saving and impacting so many lives, she would be smiling from ear to ear. That beautiful smile, that beautiful Henrietta smile, it'll light up a room.
Something, right? Very, very, very interesting, right? When we think about the things that these people do to our people continuously. Now, let's just think, right? Just looking at her story, little Sarah Bartman, who was a little white girl that had all the oil, and Miss Mary Ellen Pleasant had all of the gold. Right now, check this out. Fertility, yes, it's everything. The cell was used for everything because it just didn't die, so they could test all types of everything. They needed it. They needed it for everything. It's so sick and disgusting how these people are. It's so sick and disgusting, right? When we think about the things that they do, to our people. So let's get into this read real quick. I want you guys to see something. Now, if you guys weren't aware, I wanted you guys to see this because I want you to know it's kind of important how they keep track of people. Right? You may not know this or think like, hey, they don't know anything about me. Certain people come up, unalived. Thank you, sis. I know you were hinting to me. Certain people came up unalived, and we'd be like, oh, what happened? How did they do that to that person? So on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? Remember, keeping in mind, they know who you guys are. I keep telling you, the Guthrie card, this is how they can track you guys. Know who you are. Know what royalty line you belong to. They know every damn thing about you that you don't know, especially if you're not doing your genealogy. I know it's not easy. Trust me, I've had a hard time myself. I keep telling you guys that I'm just now getting the help that I've been seeking for a long time, so it's kind of understandable, but we have to do whatever we can, or, just make sure that we are walking in the right way so things will come into our provision. The Guthrie card, I've talked about this multiple times. If you have not heard me, the Guthrie card, look it up. They have your blood samples. They have it on a file system. They actually even have a piece of your placenta that they extract, and they keep that on a file as well. This is how they create your fictitious being using your shadow man, to presume you or the person who you actually are. Okay, let's get into this story. Now, if you guys didn't know, the reason I wanted to do this part two, bring this into this information again, lady spoke to me about the video and how she done the genealogy. I thought she'd be able to join yesterday, but she wasn't able to join, and I had to reschedule. So I actually am just going to do this, and we'll get her another time or whatever. But whenever she has time. So, she has a lot she's trying to help people with, so on and so forth. So hopefully I can get her to, we can go into this because I want you guys to see, we may do a part 3 because she couldn't see this. Now, check this out. I want you guys to see this. I hope you guys can see this, that this says Henrietta Lacks. She was born as Loretta Pleasant. Henrietta Lacks was Loretta Pleasant. See, didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you that she was married? That she was some kind of way she was in the heresy of Miss Mary Ellen Pleasant. Henrietta Lacks was born Loretta Pleasant. Okay. So, peace and love, brother. Keeping in mind, her ancestor had all the gold. Mary had the gold, and as well had the immortal cell. Right? She didn't get ill. She didn't go to the doctor, so they didn't know. She healed herself. Remember, she was a self-healer. See, this is how these people start taking advantage of our people, these hospital systems. Remember, I told you guys, remember with the mission, it said they created the school, the church, and the hospital. The hospital is so freaking important. Why? Because they had to be able to transport things, use your biology, the study of you to see what's going on with you so they can see how they can make themselves better. All these types of things. Mary had the gold as well and the immortal cell. They took Mary Ellen Pleasant's
Gold and Henrietta Lacks, actually Miss Loretta. Let me see, is that 2 R's on Loretta? No, 1 R. 1 R, sorry about that. Golden cells. Now, look at the ironicness of this. They took her ancestors' gold and turned around. When she went to the doctor, they found that she had the golden cells. Do you see the everything that this family had? Now, this family, more than likely, they may not even know that Miss Mary Ellen Pleasant was an ancestor. You know, they may know their genealogy, and so they may realize this. They may not understand, but know the depth of everything that was taken from their family, that was stolen. You know, we just show everything that she had. You know, yeah, that part. I know you're talking about the gene, right? The atomic structure of the gene from the person of soul with light and ether. Right, a big ass difference. Okay, let's read this. I'm going to read this on. I just wanted you guys to see this. So Henrietta Lacks, who was actually born Miss Loretta Pleasant on August the 1st of 1920, October the 4th of 1941, is saying something happened. I don't know why they have that disambiguation. I see a 1, so that may be a disambiguation. It says lack, and it says lack is a disambiguation. We'll look into that. I tell you guys about disambiguations all the time. It gives you a falsity. That's propaganda. Disambiguation is propaganda. So when you think about disambiguation as propaganda, this is why they're saying that, because Lacks was not her name. Henrietta Lacks was not her name. That's a whole different name. That's a stage name that they used to create more falsities, because remember, her family didn't know. They stole her cells. They were using them, you know, so they had to have a fictitious person. The cells, that because they were immortal cells, these were living cells. The living cells, they created a name for it. Do you guys comprehend that? So by creating a name for the living cells. Oh, hold on, guys. I got to take this. I'm so sorry. 1 second. All right. Appreciate you guys for waiting. Let's get back to it. All right. So, all right. Now, so as I was saying, I'm sorry, guys, I had to take that. That was important. So the disambiguation, you know, that proves fictitious. So as I was explaining, you're thinking about this name. This is why I'm saying it's a disambiguation. It's a fact that they use the immortal cells being a living cell. You know, each cell, you only need one little stem cell to create a whole person. Like literally, they can make a clone out of a stem cell, develop it in a test tube. Yeah, like literally a person that would be born without a soul, like a lot of the incubated beings, you know, so on and so forth. You get it? All right, so let's finish reading this, because y'all know I'll keep talking about all the other deeper stuff, and I want to stick to this part. Okay. Um,
We know when they say what African American, that's what another disambiguation. You see number 4 here. I don't know why, but it's a disambiguation. Legacy of Henrietta Lacks. John Hopkins Medicine retrieved number 4 because this is also disambiguation. But African American. Okay, it says that she was an African American, so we know that she was an indigenous woman, right? Whose cancer cells were the source of the HeLa cell lines, as we know, the first immortalized cell line. We just read about that. What I wanted you guys to see was that this woman was the ancestor of Miss Lacks. And they would not have known that she was the ancestor of Miss Lacks, because if they'd known, we would have had something done scientifically with Miss Pleasant cells. I'm pretty sure they would have done something to take her cells had they known about the immortal bloodline that she had. If they known about it, they would have done something with it then. So they didn't know that she was actually a relative until they were able to use her cells and know that, oh my gosh, this family, the Pleasant family, actually has it. So now these people coming down that line also have these lines. These are like literally, when you talk about people being the gods, what do you think? What do you think? What do people think? When there's talking about we are the gods, right? When we say we are the gods. I showed you guys the video, so I didn't have to do all that reading. We're not going to read all this. I really just wanted you guys to see for yourself that Miss Henrietta Lacks and the golden cell that she had that actually helped with developing all types of medical technologies, even creating babies for these people, because like I said, it's a building block. When you're thinking about a cell is a life building block. You create, building block. This is why you can manifest, right? We talk about this a lot. Manifestation comes from you actually creating or putting out the atomic. When you're speaking, right, you can feel it coming out of your stomach, right? You're pulling that from the pit of your belly. You're actually pulling out those cells and pushing them forward. So you're spewing, you're literally spitting I did a build on this, particularly on the indigenous one last year sometime. Very good build. If you guys haven't seen it, go and see it. I think it's on my community page. When I tell you, when you're spewing these words from your mouth, you are creating, whatever you talk or speak, when the spit is coming out of you. When that wind, that breath, that life, that is the atoms that are actually being spewed from your pit of your belly, where the atomic structure is. You pull that up. It actually comes through your chakra system and you voice it. Once you push it out through your vocal cords, now you are voicing it, which gives it that frequency that it needs to actually activate something in this planisphere. Do you guys get this? You're activating something in the planisphere. When you activate these things, right, you are actually making these molecules self-replicate. This is the same thing that happens with the nanoparticles. This is why they use the nanoparticles, right? Because when you have cells that self-replicate, the nanoparticles are doing the same thing. It's that they're GMO. So the nanoparticles, the Morgellons, these are two different particles. So now when you're thinking about the atomic structure that you have within you, that you create, and then you're pushing these things out, you're putting it into the atmosphere. Now you're actually spewing and manifesting because those building blocks will build. This is how they build. They self-replicate. They continue to build. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, so on and so on and so on. So now you have the manifestation of what you have created based off of what you speak. If you're speaking bad things, you're continuously, oh, I'm not doing too good. Oh, things are going bad. I hate my job. I hate my life. This is horrible. I hate this car. This house is the best. It's the worst. This neighborhood is I'm so tired of it. I can't stand my neighbors. When you talk these things, you're going to continue to have them manifest in your life, right? The best thing to do is to speak the positivity. The best thing to do is to speak the manifestation of what you want to create. You're going to manifest the things that you want. You're going to bring them into your atmosphere. You're going to start to push those things out. So now you have those stumbling blocks ahead of you, and they're working for you in your benefit. They're working in your favor. You are able to actually start to benefit from these things, because when you have these stumbling blocks that are ahead of you, if you've created something that is manifesting, those things will be knocked down. You'll be able to create things that will build up what you need. You'll be able to build on those things. So now you're creating a new structure, something that you want to pull in, something you want to manifest, right? This is what's going on. So now, when we're thinking about Miss Lacks and everything that she's created, she's like a part of so many things in this entire world, because so many medical technologies have been created and benefited from herself, just in themselves. So many people's lives have been benefited. So many people's lives have been created. All of these based off of herself. When you're thinking about these things, these are the same things that you can manifest. You can bring these things into your reality yourself. When you're talking and speaking these things, you're taking the action, and you're actually using your mind to bring the action forward. You remember those little cartoons when you're little and it was like a little light bulb? Oh, something went off in my head. That's a light bulb. It's showing you that's the energy, right? So now you have that energy going. Once you have created the energy and the buoyancy of everything that you want it to be, you can just literally start to move it around. You can use that energy and start to place it where you need it to be, right? You'll be able to transform things, transmutate things from where they used to be, and actually start to fix them and make them what you need them to be, because you are projecting these things into your future. You're going to be projecting the things, you're going to be pushing out, and you're going to bring them in. You're going to call these things into you. A lot of people are over here on my channel because of just that. A lot of you guys have been asking questions and, wondering about things and, so on and so forth. And then y'all happen to just pop on my channel. It's like, oh, snap. What's Sister Soul talking about? Oh, my God. Sister Soul is talking about something I was just wondering about the other day. Man, she's talking about something that I thought about a while ago, and it just, it's coming out right now and confirming something I already knew, because we're a part of the same ether, right? When we're on a certain frequency, we are all bouncing off of that same energy. We are all one light in energy. Light is just, it's just going through everything, everywhere. Light is energy. Energy is light. Light is life. We're all connected to everything that is a part of this ether. So if we're connected to everything that's a part of this ether, we're connected to each other, right? So we're going to resonate to those things that we need to have around us. We're going to resonate to people. People will come into your path. It could be a stranger. They'll just start talking about something, You're looking like, dang, how they know I was just thinking about that? Like something must have just like sent them into the atmosphere. Yeah, you called it. You spoke that into the atmosphere. So it had to comply by bringing something in to give you the information that you requested upon, right? It's not hard. We are in a position, guys, right now where our energy is awesome. Our energy is so powerful that we have not even understood it. This is why it's been pushed down, pressed down, weighed down, because the lighter you get, which is the density within you, that's that balance that they talk about sometimes, talking about you have to be balanced with things. There's a density that you create inside yourself. When you create that particular density, right, what starts to happen is that you become lighter in your life, lighter in the person you are, your physical being, your mental being, and your spiritual being. These things become balanced so that you're able to walk into things that are supposed to be in your path. The things that aren't supposed to be there, you'll be able to know that this isn't a part of me. You'll get around those things. You'll start stepping over those things. You'll start removing those people. You'll stop doing those things that you used to do. You'll stop eating those foods that you were eating because you notice now, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was actually weighing my body down. Oh my goodness, I didn't know my body would feel so much better by not eating these particular things, putting these certain chemicals in, by making sure I'm getting enough sun. Sun is life, light, energy. My grandbaby is having some jaundice issues, right? And she'll need a light. She'll need light. Oh no, she needs sunshine. She needs some sun. Take her out in the sun, 15 minutes a day, 2 or 3 times a day. And yes, that it's gone. It just started to diminish. They're like, oh wow, the levels just went down. Yeah, that good old sun, sweetheart. It does it every time, So we have to know the things that are beneficial for us. We have to know the things that are good for us, that will help us to be in a better space mentally, physically, and intellectually. Taking care to remove things that are dark and weigh down on you, things that don't uplift your spirit, things that don't bring you to a higher level of thinking, things that don't elevate you. We can't continue to talk about things that we already know, right? It's only beneficial to enlighten your mind or make it grow by exercising it with new information. And we only want pertinent information, right? We don't want to be taking in things that aren't beneficial to us, our life, our family, growth, um, financial security for our family, making sure that we're lining things up, you know we need to make sure that we're doing the things that are proper for our standing in our spiritual capacity, so that we're able to handle all of the other things. Because if that's not strong, oh man, I don't even know what to tell you. you know it's been very important for me to try to do a few things when it comes to doing lives and things of that nature. There are so many things I want to talk about now. I hope you guys are going to the community page. As I said, I have to tell you this all the time, remind you guys, there's so much information I post on there daily. Make sure, if you can, join my Patreon page. I also post additional things on there, and documents, and sometimes templates. So these things are important, so that you are enlightened, you're growing, you're fortifying yourself, edifying yourself, so on and so forth. I'm going to put the link out. I see sisters in the chat. I don't know if she's driving or working, or if she want to pop up. Anyone else as well. You guys are all welcome to pop up if you want to. We can have a quick conversation about anything we spoke on, or whatever's on your mind in regards to, anything you heard or what you're thinking about. I'll give the opportunity, you guys, to do that. So right now, guys, we have to remember that everything that we are doing is supposed to be beneficial. You shouldn't even be making moves in your life if it's not making improvements. You shouldn't be doing anything in your life if it's not going to make a growth in an area, some area, even if you're learning something, so that you're exercising your mind to the right capacity, so that you're able to open it up to learning other things. Sometimes you can't even learn things because you are blocking yourself with the heavy weight or burden of things that are non-beneficial. People as well. When I say things, we can be talking about people, certain people that are in your life, certain people that you have around you. A lot of times they are stagnant. They can bring you down. It could be your mate. It could be a family member. It could be someone you're associated with at your workplace, so on and so forth. We just can't do that. We have to make sure that we're keeping ourselves balanced and doing the things that are beneficial. No one should be bored. Like, I put so much stuff on that community page, so many books. You guys can go and read them, get a lot of information. So when I'm talking about certain things, a lot of things will coincide with those things, because it's all on the same topic. Us. It's all on the same topic. Us, 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 us. What they did to us, what they want to do to us. Actually, this one, you know what? Let me see. Hold on a second, guys. This particular one. Let me see how small it looks on here. If I can actually pull up this link real quick. I don't know. Last time I was acting a little ignorant. We had a little bit of issues going on. So let's see. Now let's see what this is talking about. We're going to let us show. Yeah, it is, but I'm not going to. No, let me go back. Hold on. Yeah, I'm not going to do this. Hold on a second. I think I am going to go here, though. Hold on a minute, guys. I got to go here with this real quick. Hold on. Yeah, it's a light evening, y'all. I've been so busy, all this stuff with this grandbaby. Oh my gosh. I'm going to play these 2 videos before we get up out of here. All right. Hold on a second. Just one. Yeah. No.
And is also evidence of a debt, which would be a certificate of indebtedness, which is an obligation issued by corporation having the same effect as. So I'm sure people have heard about the numbers on the back of the Social Security card being tied to a Federal Reserve Bank. This is absolutely true. As you can see from the government website, here's a list of the Federal Reserve banks and the corresponding alphanumeric letter designations. I happen to be the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. So I'm going to enter my Federal Reserve Bank routing number, as you can see. And I entered my Social Security number as the account number, as you can see. Just so people can see that this is my own information. And Amazon accepted it. The results are. But understand this, not everybody has access to this account because some of these accounts aren't authorized to be used. Some of these accounts don't allow ACH transfers. If there wasn't an account, they wouldn't allow you to put the information in at all. Your Social Security number is definitely an account.
That part. Just a little tease. Okay, y'all, hold on. Let me put this other video up real quick. Let's just share this since we were talking about Miss Lacks.
Some white women are born with tails. I dated 2 white women.
Why did you do that? Hold on. Trying to make the page go down, guys.
So y'all might not believe me, but some white women are born with tails. I dated 2 white women, and they both had the little marks at the base of their spine, right above their butt, where they had got those things cut off. When I asked them about those marks, they told me I was born with a little tail, and the doctor cut it off when I was born.
Balaji was born with a deformity of his spine, which has caused a lifeless tail to grow out of his back.
That there is no gradual development of humans. I believe that we were manufactured somewhere else. I'll just call it like I see it. The historical record to me looks like that this world we're living on already had basically black people, African Americans in different geographical areas. Then all of a sudden we had Mongolid types in different types of areas. Then all of a sudden we have what we're called Cro-Magnon.
All right, so I've just been out biking for sort of 10 to 20 minutes with wet hair because it's summer now, apparently. And I came back and my hair smells like wet dog. And I don't know why this happens. I've heard it only happens to white people, and I'm pretty sure it's true because I know a lot of white people that smell like this after being outside the entire day. There's something in our hair and in the city air that does this. It just smells like wet dog. So if you know why, please put it in the comments because this is an interesting scientific thing to research. Pretty stupid, but interesting nonetheless. All right, have a nice day.
Now look at this. This is from animals that share DNA sequences, okay, with people. Now look at this. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. 98% of the DNA is they share with monkeys. Let's go to dogs. 84% of the DNA is they share with dogs. 90% is with the mouse. Huh? And then they got 65% with the goddamn chicken. Huh? Huh? And then when when a motherfucker say it smell like wet dog, then you think somebody being racist. Ain't nobody being fucking racist. Huh? Look. It's the same fucking hair follicles. Huh? Look. 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 When a nigga say, motherfuckers been calling us monkeys for goddamn 1,000 years. Bitch, I don't look at my motherfucking lips. Look at my motherfucking lips. Them ain't my motherfucking lips. Look at this. Look at it. And so don't play with me like that. Don't play with me like that. Don't play with me like that.
When we dealing with the Caucasian not having no soul, you have to understand in order to possess the cosmic essence, you have to have melanin. A specific component of melanin being neuromelanin, the one with the N, not the E. Caucasians only have pheomelanin, which is animal melanin. They cannot get above the animal plane conscious level. You see animals kill, a lion will kill you and don't lose no sleep. A gorilla will kill you, don't lose no sleep. A cobra will kill you, don't lose no sleep. The Caucasian is killing us and don't lose no sleep because they are physically composed of the same melanin phenotype of animals. They do not have the neuromelanin, which is manifested within the neuromelanin nerve tract of the brain that allows you to connect to what you call God, the creator, whatever you identify with God as, and possess a conscience. White people do not have no conscience. Now, why is this important? Because the pineal gland is crucial to the soul. The soul enters the body through the pineal gland. So if your door is locked, you can't get in your house. 85% of Caucasians have calcified pineal glands, and they also lack neuro and uromelanin. So now, why is this important? 85% of Caucasians have no gland within their brain that allows their soul to enter the body. So there is a level of, let's say, spirit that they can never access. They can never access the higher self. 85% of Caucasians, and I believe the number is way higher, but we're dealing with scientific statistics that they document that can be researched and referenced. Right. 85% of Caucasians cannot, their vehicles cannot intake a soul. They have calcified pineal glands. The door to the body has been shut. And even if they did, they don't have neuromelanin. Neuromelanin is called neuromelanin because it has neurons. It has neurons that allow your thoughts to actually exit through the pineal gland and connect with the realm, the ether realm, non-ether. When you hear people make these statements, or cosmic melanin, and this is how you manifest, this is how you pray, this is how you connect to the creator. So even if the Caucasian doesn't have a calcified pineal gland, they have no neuromelanin. So their thoughts can't connect to the creator. They have no cosmic affiliation. They have no cosmic soul. How do we know this as well? Melanin is condensed sunlight. Once the sun vibrates past 800 terahertz, it begins to condensate and combust and become melanin. Just like water goes from gas, liquid to solid, sunlight goes from electricity and magnetism to light to melanin. So why is it important? We are the children of the sun. This is why we can connect to the solar system. This is why we are energized by the solar system and everything in nature. The Caucasian is not a naturally manifested humanoid being. Only Africans are 100% human. Caucasians are 96% human, 4% Neanderthal. They are genetically spliced and engineered.
When we started to have the first interbreeding occurring that led to blue-eyed, white-skinned people. The only people that actually seem to have been generated by the Earth's own evolution is black people. Those are the only racial types that we have on Earth that you don't see in people that come from other planets, and that makes them very special.
What if white people didn't exist? And then I remembered we aren't supposed to exist. Being white is a genetic mutation.
Who do we come from? Given all of our cultural and physical and linguistic differences, how do we connect to one another? Creationists might say we all separated at Babel, but how step by step did we get here? And to this day, we still naturally, because we're sinners, look at people who are different than us and say foreign or separate or racist views of one another. And this is one of the ways that we're uncovering the connections among us, and they're much more surprising than we think. And it's not just modern people, it's looking at the ancients as well. I grew up with the default assumption that being of half German descent, and then that's my mother's side, and my dad's side being American for many generations, but likely back to Europe. These other cultures that are not Central Europe, so Greeks are Southern Europe, of course, or not European at all, the African Egyptians, the Iranian Persians, none of these must be connected to me. They're elsewhere in the globe. Well, we're finding out that these stereotypes that I grew up with, that perhaps you grew up with, are turning out to be wrong. And I've promised there's some shocking conclusions we're going to reach in this series. Those second and third points we've already begun to uncover. We've seen that most Europeans have recent Asian ancestry. We've seen that nationalities disappear, German, French, British, these go away. We are eventually going to see that so-called black white people exist. Dark skin, I should say, light skinned people, Caucasians walking around who've had African ancestors for thousands of years. None of this we'd ever expected without these tools of genetics. We've seen that the Americas have been resettled at least once, and eventually we're going to get to the most ancient history, the Neanderthals, and figure out how they fit into this equation and whether or not the mainstream narrative and explanation for their origins and migration fits the data. And my overall goal is not just apologetic, not just challenging someone's view if you don't agree with what the scriptures say, but that we'd all marvel at who we came from, our own stories, in a way we've never done so before. We've begun to marvel at the story of the Native Americans. We've seen over previous episodes that today's Native Americans are not the first Americans. They came over to the Americas in the AD era and perhaps mixed with, or maybe more likely, wiped out whoever was here first. And this unprecedented discovery about the world raises a whole bunch of new questions that are begging for answers. Why did they leave Central Asia? What is their story? What pushed them across the Bering Strait? What happened after they arrived in the Americas, and who were the first Americans? What I'm going to look at today, though, is the question of why did today's Native Americans leave Central Asia? This is not something in mainstream science many people think about, because they push off this particular event into the realm of prehistory, 15,000 years ago. Well, this anchors it firmly in recorded history. And so what historical events might this be tied to? And to think about why Native Americans would leave Central Asia, let's deal with something more familiar. Let's think in today's terms why people might leave ancestral homelands. And there's many often sad examples we can think of in today's world. What comes to my mind is the refugee crisis, ongoing refugee crisis in Syria. There's millions of people who have been displaced, including children. Why? Because of massive civil war that's going on, basically civil unrest. And how many examples can we think of from history of civil unrest forcing people out, fleeing, seeking refugee status in other countries? That's one potential explanation for why people leave where they were originally from. It doesn't have to be necessarily that extreme, though. Thinking of the history of the United States, people came over from Great Britain, from Europe, settled on the East Coast, and then eventually started moving west. Why would they leave the East Coast and pick up and try to start a new life further west? Economic opportunity, another major theme in migrations and human history. But you think back to the earliest stages of the United States, the coming of the Pilgrims, their motive, their purpose in coming over was to flee religious persecution. So the seeking of religious freedom is yet another motivation, another purpose in leaving. And these don't need to be distinct. They can all be overlapping and simultaneous when people leave wherever they're from. Could any of these explanations have applied historically to this question of today's Native Americans? Is there anything in history that might indicate and give us a clue as to why these people in the early AD era left their ancestral homelands in Asia and came across the Bering Strait? Well, in the era of 250 to 800 AD, there's something very significant happening in Europe. Around the time of Christ, AD 1, AD 30, it was the Roman Empire that was ruling much of Europe. And around the 400s, 500s AD, after the Western and Eastern Roman Empires split up, the Western Roman Empire fell due to invasions from so-called Germanic barbarians. Some of these appear to be indigenous Europeans. We'll discuss them more when we talk about what happened to the Vikings in a future episode. But some of them were Central Asian, like the Huns, shown here by this green arrow. So on the other side of the map, the western side of the map, there was tremendous civil unrest, invasions, warfare happening in the Roman Empire. So that's what's happening on the left side. On the right side of the map, the Asian side of the map, you might recall from episode 9 when we discussed Chinese history, that we can summarize East Asian history, at least Chinese history, by a long series of Chinese dynasties that undergo periodic interruptions, usually due to invaders from the north. They're protected geographically in the west, the south, the east. It's the north where they build the Great Wall to try to keep these people out. Well, they can breach these defenses occasionally. And one of the major episodes, which at least one history book calls the Age of Division, happens exactly during this time period. The end of it is the Han Dynasty, around 200 to 20 AD. And there's all sorts of unrest then in China, division, so forth. There's barbarians who rule in northern China, and they don't get thrown out until the late 500s, early 600s AD by the Sui dynasty. So it's the Han Dynasty that's ruling China around the time of Christ, sort of contemporary with the Roman Empire at times. They fall, lots of division ensues. You have northern barbarian tribes like the Shanbai who are ruling up here and don't get thrown out till late 500s, 600s. And we discussed this when we talked about the ancient Chinese connection to modern Europe. It's this particular branch, this group on the tree that we call Group N, that shows this connection. Well, that's very intriguing. Around the same time that the Native Americans, today's Native Americans, are leaving Asia, you have tremendous upheaval and civil unrest in Asia. And in fact, because you have unrest all across the Asian continent, from Europe, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, this period of history has been given its own name, and the German name they came up with was the Völkerwanderung, or in English, the Great Wandering of Peoples, because there's so much activity in Central Asia, so much movement east and west. This is a massive transition period. So is it any surprise that we have not only movements within Asia, but from Asia out into an entirely different continent? So this is an intriguing handle that begs for further explanation. The next steps here would be for someone who can read Chinese, I cannot, to take a deep dive into the historical literature. The smoking gun that would give us an even greater clue into the story of the Native Americans would be finding some sort of historical record that says, these people were living over here, they were doing this, and then they disappeared and we never heard from them again. That's the type of thing I'm expecting to be able to find in the historical records in ancient Chinese literature or the literature of others around that time period. Perhaps we could also find the answer as we take a deeper dive into the oral and written histories of the Native Americans. I'm concluding right here without a great resolution because this is research in progress and this is begging for a multidisciplinary, multi-person investigation. I'm a geneticist by training. Some of our viewers might know people who are historians. This is groundbreaking research that no one's ever considered. No one's taken this approach to take a deep dive into this period of history to say what was going on and can we start putting the pieces together to solve this puzzle of Native American history and move it from the realm of prehistory into the historical era where we have written records and such that can tell us what happened. Well, that's one field of science we can turn to try to expand the story of today's Native Americans. I want to turn to another discipline of science that also holds some tantalizing clues, and that's the discipline of linguistics. So for example, if you compare basic words that pretty much every language needs, and I'm going to compare them in German and English, you see some similarities. So everyone has a father, a mother, everyone's born, they live. You need to have these sorts of words in virtually every language. So let's compare the English and the German. Notice that in English, we say father. In German, it's spelled with a V, but it's pronounced the same letter is still that F sound, Vater. Mother, Mutter, you can see the similarities again with the first letter pronunciation. Born, geboren. In German, the emphasis is still on the B, the second syllable. Life, Leben, you can see there's obvious parallels between these two. The parallels aren't as strong between English and Spanish. So father doesn't have a F sound, it has a P sound in Spanish, padre. Mother still has the M, retains the madre. Born, though, you can see the differences are more striking. Nacido, and life has a vida beginning, doesn't have the L sound. Spanish and Latin, though, seem to be about as similar as English and German. Both have the P for father. Padre, pater, madre, mater, nacido, natus. You can see those parallels there between Spanish and Latin. And if we didn't know any better, looking at these similarities and differences, we might be tempted to say perhaps there's a relationship among these languages. Perhaps English and German come from a common ancestral language. Perhaps Spanish and Latin come from a common ancestral language. And if we think about it deeper and further, maybe both of these groups share a common ancestor in the distant past. And if you're watching, you might say, whoa, 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 whoa. You're talking about language evolution? Well, no, but I'm talking about something that might be familiar, especially to those who have been watching and are familiar with the concept of kinds. So let's think about this from a biblical perspective. Genesis 10, and especially Genesis 11, talk about the origin of languages. God says, and writes in Genesis 11, that the whole earth was one speech, one language, and because mankind rebelled and refused to obey the command to spread out, as God told them to, instead they built a tower to heaven, God says, and forces them to spread out by confusing their languages. Genesis 10 gives us a list of about 70 or so men, and says, by these, their families were divided, the nations were divided. And so I'm going to go with the idea that Genesis 10 gives us the family groups of those who were divided at that time in history. There's the entire planet shortly after the flood. Now today, the number of languages is not 70. The number of languages is in excess of 7,000. So how in the world to make sense of that? Well, if the language division that happened in Babel continued to produce more and more languages, that's how you explain it. So I would argue there's a biblical precedent for looking at this. And the parallel that I see is to the concept of kind. So for years now, creationists have talked about the kind that God creates in Genesis chapter 1. It's not the same thing as species. God doesn't create a whole bunch of species. He doesn't create millions of species in the beginning. He creates kinds. And from these kinds, new species have formed. And fast forwarding to the time of the flood, Noah takes two of every kind. He doesn't take two house cats and two lions and two tigers. They're all part of the same family, even though they're separate species. Noah takes two felids on board the ark, and after the flood, the 30 plus species of cats, large and small, are formed. There's limits to that, but speciation happens. In a similar way, I argue that there's limits to the amount of language change that can happen, but from these 70 initial kinds, perhaps, of languages, to use that term, families of languages, many languages have formed since then. So I would argue there's a biblical basis for exploring possible relationships among these particular languages. And one of the most useful tools of classification, perhaps ironically, in linguistics, there's the concept of language families. And in biological classification, if you've read our literature and listened to our talks, you know that in the realm of classifying animal species, it's the level not of species or genus, but of family. That seems to be the best rule of thumb for approximating what these kinds are. Well, lo and behold, if you look at family, something very intriguing emerges in the field of linguistics. So the languages we just discussed are part of a larger Indo-European family. Notice here in red, English, so British Isles and such, are the same color as German languages, Germanic languages, German, Icelandic, Scandinavian ones. You notice that Spanish, Italian, Latin, French, Portuguese, Romanian are all in this tan color. They're Romance languages. The green ones are Slavic languages. You've got Indic languages, Sanskrit and such over here. All of these colors together represent not several, but one language family, the Indo-European family. There's several hundred languages in the Indo-European family. The colors represent subdivisions within it. In Asia, there are also several language families. This represents a single language family, and the colors represent branches within it. This is the Sino-Tibetan language family. Chinese is one subdivision. You've got Tibetan languages, Burmese languages, and so forth. There's multiple language families. As this larger map of Asia indicates, you've got Arabian languages, the Afro-Asiatic ones, Arabic and such. We've got Austronesian ones, which we'll discuss in a future episode. Here you've got the Sino-Tibetan ones broken up into their subdivisions. This is the basic unit that collects languages into a larger grouping. And the reason I bring it up is because when you look at the number of families that exist today, or to phrase it differently, if you were looking at this question and you say, okay, there's 70 families, 70 language units that are listed in Genesis 10, yet there's 100 times that number of languages today, what might be a good approximation for what those original units were? Well, lo and behold, you crack open a linguistics book, like one that the Ethnologue, which comes from the Summer Institute of Linguistics, which is affiliated with the Wycliffe Bible translators. And if you know anything about missions, there's obviously a strong interest in knowing the languages of the world so we can translate the Bible into those.
So, what do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of that? I ain't gonna get too much into it. A lot of truth in that. He's a little mixed because he don't know a lot of his history as well, but he definitely have a lot of information. You know, he definitely was on point about some of it, but some of it was definitely off. We ain't gonna talk about it too much, but it's just showing that even these people know Asia's the native, same damn difference. Exactly, sis. Same different, nothing different. All right, guys, let's read this. I'm not going to read too much of this book, but before we get out of here, this will be the last thing, just so you can get it for yourself. It says prior to 1790, it was almost impossible to figure out exactly how many Negroes were slaves and how many were free. In fact, we do not yet know how many Negroes were actually imported as slaves. According to Carey, the total number up to 1,808 aggravated and about 340,000, right? Others believe that there were brought in probably as much as 400,000, which we know is a lie. when it comes to Negro slaves. There were slaves, but not the Negro slaves. Better estimates are impossible here because of the variation in the annual importation. The annual importation. Annual. You know what annual? You guys know what annual means? Annual means that's something that happens like quarterly, maybe 3 times, 4 times a year. It depends on what their annual time is. They could have it every 4 months, every 3 months, right? Okay. So annually, importation as a result of many influences from 1760 to 1770, there was a decided increase in the number brought in from 1770 to 1790, just in that 20-year span, right? However, when the spirit of freedom was strong as a result of the struggle for the rights of man during the American Revolution, this number decreased. After it was decided by the framers of the Constitution in 1787 that the slave trade, hold on, that the slave trade should be prohibited after 1808. Several of the southern states feeling that they were dependent upon slave labor. The Southerners were dependent on the slave labor. Well, why would they be dependent on the slave labor that was being brought in? It said imported. It said the imported immigrants. So the black Negroes in the United States were bringing in the immigrants to be their slaves, and they were dependent on them for their labor. It says it right here. Dependent on them for their slave labor. The imported as many as possible. Imported as many as possible during the period immediately preceding that date. There were 757,881 Negroes in the United States already in 1790, and 59,557 were free. 757,881 Negroes in 1790, and almost 60,000 of them were free, they're saying. So you mean to tell me 700,000 Negroes were brought in? We know that part's a lie, right? So we could just spit that damn bone out. Some of the Negroes early reported as slaves, however, never had such a status. They never had such a status. So how could you say that's what they would, that's what they were? At least a few of the first Negroes brought to this country were indentured servants like white persons of this class. What they said they were indentured servants like the white class, right? Like the white persons. Didn't they tell you that these white persons were the slaves? They keep trying to tell you people that they weren't the slaves, but it's telling you again right here. They were the slaves because it's telling you that they were the slaves just like the white person, right? Just like the white persons. Also, where was I? The white indentured servants became free at the expiration of their term of service. They took up land and in some cases became employers of indentured servants themselves and slaveholders themselves, a very few of them. It is highly probable that one of the 20 Negroes that were brought. Listen, hold on, pay attention. Went up too far. Hold on. Okay, it is quite. Where was I at? I went like way off. I think. Let me see. Okay. Okay. I hate when I lose my spot. Okay, because I don't want to keep reading the same one. Okay. The spirit, the Constitution. Okay, here we go. The American Revolution. Okay, let me see. Hold on. When the spirit of freedom was strong, as a result of the struggle for the rights of man during the American Revolution, this number decreased after it was decided by the framers of the Constitution in 1787 that the slave trade should be prohibited. Okay, now I just read that. Where was I at? Negroes brought to this country were indentured servants like the white persons of this class imported here during the beginning of colonies. The white persons of class imported here during the beginning of the colonies. Remember, they came in through the colonies, and some of them were slaves, and they were put in through the Indian camps, which were turned into reservations as well. Keep that in mind. J.H. Russell expressed his opinion and the free Negroes in Virginia. Such Negroes, like the white indentured servants, became free at the expiration of their term, took up land, and in some cases became employees. Because remember, it told you, now listen how they're talking about this like this. Oh, it was nothing. But remember, when they came on the reservation, right, they were given the land. They were given the land. They were given a plot of land because that was part of them being the fake agent of a native. So when in the reservations, they were given plots of land. I remember we read in the book and they were telling us that they gave plots of land. They got a certain plot of land and so on and so forth. And these lands that they took from our people, right, using their names, taking over the towns and the areas, moving the people, removing our people, displacing them, moving them further out because they were running away from these nutty ass people with their diseased behinds. And then they would come in and take over, right? So this is what was going on. This is why they had the BLM offices come in to create the paperwork, the false paperwork. The BLM office is a false entity as well. The Bureau of Land Management, they tried to say it's Black Lives Matter. When they was talking about BLM, they kept telling you Black Lives Matter. They were talking about the Black Lives Matter was really the land they're talking about. You are the land. You are the agriculture. You're listed as agriculture. I tell you that all the time. All right, let's finish reading some of this. All right. So the slaveholders themselves, it was highly probable that one of the 20 Negroes, listen to this, one of the 20 Negroes that were brought to Jamestown in 1619 became a slaveholder. Listen, one of the 20 Negroes that were brought to Jamestown in 1690 became a slaveholder. Well, damn. In 1690, they brought slaves over from Africa, and then they became slaveholders. Does that make sense? Somebody make sense of that. How they became slaveholders in that small span of time. They got there in 1690 and they were slaveholders. The higher status of the free Negro is well attested by the fact that although the colonies had special enactments protecting the slave property and providing special codes and tribunals for this element of the population, listen, special enactments. What's an enactment? Something that's an act that's put into place. Special enactments protecting slave property, protecting the slave property, the people, and providing special codes and tribunals for this element of the population. What was the element of population? The colonization, the reservations, creating a structure or construct for people that were coming in so that they could take over the land of the people that were the indigenous of the land, right? So now they have these people and they've constructed everything as they told you. Then it says they, at the same time, recognize free people of color. Well, damn, how could they recognize free people of color if they already had the free people of color that they brought in that were slaves, but now they are free people? Like, come on now, don't make no sense. After the middle of the century, however, it was difficult for an African immigrant to escape being reduced to slavery. The period in which it was possible for Negroes to come as servants and later acquire freedom terminated near the end of the 17th century. The free Negro population, let me go down. Come on. Okay. The free Negro population thereafter found recruits only from children born of free Negro parents, mulatto children born of free Negro mothers. So listen, if they were a mulatto born of a free Negro mother, it had to have been a white man that impregnated her so that they could have a free mulatto child, right? Mulatto children born of white servants, or the free white women, children of free Negro and Indian mixed parentage, and manumitted slaves. Now, keep this in mind, guys. Remember, we went over those records, and it was showing us some of them were Indians. It was showing some of them were Creole, Cherokee. Remember, because they were speaking of the mulattoes that were mixed in, bringing in at the time. Of the children born of free Negro parents, there was a steady increase This, of course, depended on some extent upon the increase of the number of Negroes of this status. During the 17th century, there were not many free Negroes in the colonies. And when the change in the attitude of the whites reduced the number of free Negro recruits from the slave population, there was not much of a prospect for an unusual increase in the number of children born of free parents, slaves, born of free Negro parents. Yet, as there was observed the Roman law to the effect that the child followed the condition of the mother. The mother is the ruler. The child followed the condition of the mother. This source of increase was the steady factor. So remember, guys, a while back we did a video and I was telling you guys about the black seed. They came and planted the black seed in the land. When you think about the seed, right? The agriculture, the land, which is the woman's womb, the black ionic womb. The miscegenation. If you haven't seen the miscegenation video, you got to go watch it. The miscegenation video explains everything. Them coming in to actually keep themselves from dying. They express how their blood was weak and they were frail and dying, and they needed to mix with the warm copper-colored blood of the American indigenous copper Indians. So when they were doing this, they were doing exactly this, and they're speaking about this right now, right? Yes, yes. All these slaves, all of it's so many of them. Oh man, all the slave owners. If you guys seen on my community tab, I posted the information on what mulattoes are and they're coming from, and this is verifying it as well. The history of the colonies, especially that of Virginia and Maryland, gives numerous instances of this sort. In the course of time, however, lustful white men found it more convenient to purchase slave women who they could compel to appease their animal passions from the animals. There were also mulatto children born of white women servants, and free white women. There were some free white women, the ones that they brought over for, whatever purposes. In the absence of social distinctions with respect to race, the distinction as to economic condition obtained, the white servant women or the free white women suffered from the same poverty and discrimination as Negro women during the early colonial periods, intermingled with Negro men who were sometimes in a better position to support them than men of their own race. The Negro men were in a better position to support them than the men of their own race. This custom endured for generations in spite of penalties, which often meant the imposition of a fine, the reduction to servitude, or the of the responsible parents, and the apprenticeship of servitude of the offspring. I'm going to read this again. Negro women during the early colonial period intermingled with the Negro men who were sometimes in a better position to support them than the men of their own race. They do that now, right? Every basketball star, every football player, every so-called movie star, what do they have? They have a Caucasian woman. They have a WT, what they say, a WT woman, right? They're doing that now. They're finding our men because they need to be able to have someone take care of them. And see, our men are a lot of them are rich now. There are a lot of black millionaires out here. Whether they're in these codes or whatever they're doing, they still have this money. So these women want to be taken care of, right? They feel like they are the prize. They're not the prize, though. Peace, brother. Peace. Peace, Rashad. Peace, brother. Peace and love. Yes, yes. All the proof right here. They always talk about, oh, no white slaves, white slaves. Where these dumb people at that keep saying there's no white slaves when there's so much proof out here? I mean, the proof's in the pudding. They telling you. It says it all. We're going to get ready to end this right now, guys. I'm a little tired. I just wanted to make sure I came in here and did a little bit with you guys to just spend a minute. Had so much going on. Welcome to my new little sweetheart. I did want to read, maybe I could read another bit of this. I just don't want to go too far and then keep going because then I'm overwhelmed and tired. I'll read a little more. We'll be out of here in a few minutes. It says that children born of free Negro and Indian parentage also became a contributing factor. Exactly how much, however, can never be determined until the extent of the miscegenation between the Negroes and the Indians. The miscegenation between the Negroes and the Indians has been scientifically studied. It is known, however, that some Indians did settle among free Negroes, and there were cases of Negro fugitive slaves who were welcomed by the Indians. The Indians took them in because they could hide them out. Same skin color, some of them, right? Some of those Africans, the few that they brought over, those people were able to blend in. Notice had to be taken of this tendency, for such offspring often became a burden to the public. They were bound out of apprentices, as in the case of free mulatto children. Even during their apprenticeship, however, they were always regarded as free Negro population, although their liberty was decidedly restricted because they had no visible means of support. In view of the fact that we find the situation of today so different from that of the early colonial period, we should properly support these assertions with cases and evidence taken from laws of the colonies. In Maryland, for example, the preamble of the law covering the case states thus exactly what the situation was, that for as much as diverse freeborn English women, forgetful of their free condition, the English woman of America, and to the disgrace of our nation, do intermarry with Negro slaves, to which also diverse suits may arise touching the issue of such women, and great damage doth befall the master of such Negroes for preservation whereof, for deterring such free-born women from such shameful matches. That mixing with them Africans, they were mixing with the Africans. That whatsoever free-born woman shall intermarry with any slave from and after the last day. When they say free-born woman, what are they talking about? They just said the English woman. Who they're talking about? Who are they talking about? Shall serve the master of such slave during the life of her husband, and that all the issues of such born free women so married shall be slaves of their fathers, as shall be slaves as their fathers were. And be it further enacted that all the issues of English or other freeborn women that have already married Negroes shall serve the master of their parents till they be 30 years of age and no longer. I think I'm going to end it right there, guys. I appreciate everybody that came in. I hope you guys enjoyed the bill. I want to get into the SCAREFACE. I'm sorry, guys. The next bill we will definitely do that. I may do that early. I know Ab's gonna be live in the morning talking about these chinos, but I might jump up here and just get that out the way real quick, because I definitely am behind on quite a few things. Not to mention this. They were, yes, yes. I keep telling you guys, yes, they were. We proved that Queen Aliquipa of England was an indigenous queen, just like all of the royals of England here in Seneca County. People are going to debate me on that. I'd love for someone to offer me a debate on that if they don't believe that. I have the proof. Putting it out there. Anyone, I'd love to provide the proof. I show it to you guys all the time. I couldn't put something together though, make sure it's known. That's right. That's right. Oh, I think I'm gonna play a couple another video before I get out of here real quick. Where's my video? Let me go to my downloads real quick. Let me see. Hold on, y'all. Let me get to it real quick. Let me get to it real quick. Let me get to it. Oh, nope, 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 not that. Where is this video at? Hold on, guys. I'm gonna play this real quick while I'm looking for this video while we get up out of here.
Ain't no comparison to the so-called black, the African American. You can drop the African, keep the American. When we say Aborigine and make the world in, I'm going in the same dirt my ancestors buried in. I come from a god and a goddess, so what that make me? Not even Oscar tricks me. Not even Van Gogh can paint me. The MC in me is the God in me. Equals the God in me. I focus in, let my mind be free. You too blind to see. The Jews I give is real. It's been real. These headshots, they missiles. All you gonna hear is the whistle. Lyrically, this the execution. My verses start revolutions. From my people seeking restitution. Since the beginning, fuck evolution. Or maybe my reality is all a dream. I put it together like I was so it seems. This is that audio dopamine. Go against the machine. We put you where nobody can hear you scream. And speaking to meet you, Elohim. My nigga, this is savage mode. It's something that you can't go. It started with a spark and I'ma let it explode. I was given the cheat codes that'll let me dump and reload. And go through them waves like a fucking torpedo. You dealt the cards of life. I just cut them diamonds with the ace of spades. Y'all scatter like roaches when they facing raid. Or vampires when they facing blade. I'm trying to get extra terrain like I'm getting played. You still stuck as a mental slave. You still stuck in that mental cage. While I'm making easy money, pimping holes in style. This my coming to age. Where I'm born when I'm coming on stage. And when I'm done, they gon' be cheering my name. Drake times and nah, I ain't quitting my day job. I spit bars. I really rap on my day off. That's real shit. Just give you some tools you can build with. Aim high even if you still miss. Just keep going. It's a climb to the top. And I'ma keep flowing. Down Lake Shore, I'm Chicagoan. Yeah. You niggas playing checkers, we playing chess. And nigga, this is checkmate. Drake be the big dog, and you just a little bait. You out of Africa, we ain't got the same trait. I'm a God man, and we ain't got the same fate. My granny died February 18th, and I was born on the same date. The chosen one, the ancestors' chosen son. They gave me the golden gun. One shot, that's a hole in one. From the pyramid of the sun, the poverty point. I don't think you niggas is getting the point. We still here. Who said they made the Aboriginals disappear? Your information's lagging in the rear. All you do is teach fear. We copper colored with woolly hair. Am I speaking clear? So fuck the nonsense. When I rap, I touch your consciousness. From within is when you get your self-confidence. Let's bring it back to dominance. Ain't no confining us. We'll bring that wild Indian out of us. Yeah. Yeah. We still here.
The Wizard of Oz, what it...
All right, guys. I'm going to play this one out of here, and we definitely out. This one right here, I want y'all to pay very, 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 very close attention to, right? Let me make sure I'm finding the right video. Get to my window here so you guys can get this, and we out after this. Peace, love, and bliss to all. It's showing. All right, we showing. Let's see.
really means. This appears to be the poor tin man just stood there, mindlessly doing his work until his body literally seized up and stopped functioning.
Let me go back.
He must let the people know that they have the power to liquidate them and get back to Kansas, the real land and republic. The Wizard of Oz, written by L. Frank Baum, is not just a mere story. What is Oz a symbol for? Ounces. What is measured in ounces? Gold. What is the yellow brick road? Bricks or ingot bars of gold. The character known as the straw man represents that fictitious, all caps, legal fiction, a person the federal US government created with the same spelling as your birth name. Remember what the straw man wanted from the Wizard of Oz? A brain? No juristic person, legal fiction, paper corporation has a brain because he or she has no breath of life. What did the straw man get in place of a brain? A certificate, a birth certificate for a new legal creation. He was proud of his new legal status, and all the other legalisms he was granted. Now he becomes the epitome of the brainless sack of straw who was given a certificate in place of a grain of common sense. Now, what about the Tin Man? Does taxpayer identification number, TIN, bring anything to mind? The poor Tin Man just stood there, mindlessly doing his work until his body literally seized up and stopped functioning. He worked himself to death because he had no heart or soul. He's the heartless and emotionless creature, robotically carrying out his daily task as though he were already dead. He's the ox pulling the plow and the mule toiling under the yoke. These days, his taskmasters just oil him nightly with beer, and place him in front of a hypnotic television, until his very existence no longer has any meaning or value. His masters keep him cold on the outside, and heartless on the inside, in order to control any emotion or feeling that might arise. The cowardly lion was always too frightened to stand up for himself. Of course, he was a bully and a big mouth when it came to picking on those smaller than him. Have you ever noticed how bullies are really the biggest cowards? They act as though they have great courage, but, in reality, have none at all. They roar, but with no teeth of authority to back them up. When push came to shove, the cowardly lion always buckled and whimpered when anyone of any size or stature challenged him. He wanted courage from the Grand Wizard, so he was awarded a medal of official recognition. Now, although remaining a coward, his official status allowed him to be a bully, but with officially recognized authority, and not at all unlike the attorneys, who hide behind the courts. What about the trip through the field of poppies? Did you notice how this had no narcotic effect on the straw man who had no brain, or the tin man with no heart or soul? They weren't real people, so drugs could not influence them. The Wizard of Oz was written at the turn of the century, so how could the author have known America was going to be drugged? The Crown has been playing the drug cartel game for centuries. Just look up the history of Hong Kong and the Opium Wars. The Crown already had valuable experience conquering all of China with drugs, so why not the rest of the world? What was the Emerald City? The Federal Reserve System. Who finally exposed Wizard for what he really was. Toto, the cute and somewhat annoying little dog. Toto means in total, or all together in Latin. What was it that the witch wanted after she alleged that the little dog had bitten her? Toto, or everything. Notice how Toto was not scared of the great wizard's theatrics, yet he was so small in size, compared to the wizard, that no one seemed to notice him. The smoke, flames, and holographic images of Oz were designed to frighten people into doing as the great wizard commanded. But Toto simply padded over, started barking until others paid attention to him and came to see what the barking was about. Who was behind the curtain? Just an ordinary person controlling the levers that created the illusion of the great wizard's power and authority.
When Toto pulled back the curtain and completely exposed him, the charade was at an end. The veil hiding the corporate legal fiction and its false courts was removed. The wizard's game was up, and what was he after all? A conman, a fraud. We can see, in this tale, just how loud the bark from a little dog can be. Most of us remain silent and wait to be given whatever food and recognition, if any, by our legal masters. Let us not forget those flying monkeys. What perfect mythical creatures to represent the Bar Association attorneys, who attack and control the little people for the great crown wizard, the powerful and grand bankers of Oz. How, finally, was the evil witch destroyed? Pure, clean water? Liquidation. How did Dorothy finally get home? She simply clicked her heels. She always had the power, and so do we. What would it take to expose the wizard for what he is? We each need only a brain, a heart and soul, and courage. Then, and perhaps of the greatest importance, we need to learn how to work together. Only by working together can we have the freedom that was given to us all under the law of God.
Peace and love to everyone. You guys have a great, awesome evening. I appreciate you guys for coming through. No sound, still no sound. Oh yeah, I did get the sound later. Okay, great. I wanted to say. All right, yes, guys, you know we all have the power. I want you guys to have a great understanding of that, making sure you are stepping into who you are, knowing who you are, standing in it, walking in it, actually presenting that in your everyday life, right? Peace, love, bliss, and I am out, guys.